All right, Charlie Kirk and the so-called prove me wrong. Well, that's part of the mark in the right hand, and overnight we are seeing this cult of this man come, and he is part of this antichrist movement, this anti-culture, and we are seeing that they are just flipping out when people cheer for this man's death, right? So some people are happy when people die, some people are sad when people die. Who gives a shit? What matters is this image that's been given life that people hold in their hand is controlling their emotions, and this guy that hardly anybody's heard of, or depending on what circles you're in or whatever, but basically this man that nobody knows personally is controlling them personally. And this is part of that antichrist, as he is stealing the inheritance through so-called Jesus Christ. And Jesus warned you in end times will be many teaching he is the Christ, and Jesus Christ versus Christ Jesus, they're not the same, because Christ is tied to the consciousness of man, that living body and member that we are all part of, and Jesus is connected to truth and grace and justice and love and loving thy neighbor. And these people aren't loving their neighbor. Just because the neighbor is glad that your friend died doesn't mean you have to go and get them fired from their job or whatever else. This is part of the worship of his name and number and abbreviation is no, period. And so that's yes or no, and all these things where either way, folks, this man, the Charlie, is tied to the dragon. The dragon is tied to your Revelation 12, where the left and right wings gathered for a time, and this woman Erica, the Erica, is telling us a sign of the times, and we're looking back in negative space as that Russian bloodless takeover has been done on America, as that Russian collusion, and the people are taught here to hate one another, and there's a so-called trans rainbow movement and eating chemicals, drinking things, all these things that are helping this projection go into a little live show, as America is that main stage at that Rockfest concert. Okay, the dragon ties us to the Lee, the Hebrews Lee, and he turns 85 this year, and 58 years ago was the so-called second coming at the tournament. And this is kind of all tying in to where we're at now. And then in Arizona and Phoenix for that plumed serpent, the Amaruca, this is where we tracked this dragon and snake these past years and whatever, and these eggs being laid and hatched, and the Easter and all those things. So whether an event goes down here or not, this is like symbolic of the snake gathering those eggs, those Jesus, those G-men, and taking them into the heat, basically, and creating these spectrums of males for the that draft, in a way, as the Babylon and the shots of Babylon are served, but also it's going to create that cold and that female, and that female ties to the male, and female made after he, them, and they are basically the ones that have that golden ticket to go to the war first, okay? Because whether you're shot in the arm or shot in the head, either way you end up dead, and more than likely probably going to be giving these people an easy way out as far as going to the war, because then when they come back they're going to have to hear about what's just happened to them or whatever. But as we're going in this little golden ratio, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the golden ticket with Grandpa Joe, and Grandpa for the Pennsylvania Butler stuff with the Harrison. Basically everything's going to come out to where you live in this puppet show, this non-democracy, as your candidates and all these things are pre-selected, pre-chosen for you, and you get to choose from these so-called pre-chosen candidates. So you actually live under a monarchy of some sorts that's disguised as a democracy, mixed in with a republic and all this other nonsense. But the rapture, the 923, woman clothed in the sun, 8 years, all these things is intermingling in with this sun turning to blood, and then the silverback gorillas and the silverbacks, the boomers, and all those things as they turn to blood on that kind of spectrum. And then silver and gold could flip on a way as Bitcoin's wrapped up into the non-stable position, and everything's going to be reevaluated soon. And that's where Bitcoin's wrapped up in all these stable coins. The Jesus is born in the stable, and in the manger, the M anger, and that's where we see this anger going now. And this Charlie Kirk is tied to the so-called Jesus spirit being born for that American Christian nationalism to bring in this so-called divide of the nation and divide of the times, and to gather up this old Nazi regime and whatever else that's been forming and showing and stuff that let me see my notes here. The Kirk Allen, that attaches to the 48 Superman, attaches us to the parody of Krapton. Your Krapton connects you to the Crapture that's going to be taking place, and your Crapture for the diapers that we see with the blood moons and those things that we've been tracking way back when. They're collapsing into our time frame now as the woman and all these things come off the anniversary of the 7 years of the sun, and we're going into another 7. I've been telling you that Great Tribulation is opening up, and now we got J.D. Vance going, let's call their job and get them fired if they don't cry for Charlie Kirk. I mean, it's just full-blown evil stuff going on by the so-called Christian faith or whatever, and the Christians are never going to find what they're looking for, because they are basically what they're looking for. Okay, so they've been blinded and deafened beyond approach in a way. The Lois Lane, and this Lane with the Erica Kirk, her name is Lane Franz or whatever, or Franz, the Hans and Franz, the Johns and Franz, that all ties to your January 6th, which ties to your Eric. Eric Trump's born on January 6th, so this Eric Trump January 6th, and these things with the January 6th and the 3 scores and the 6, all those things are a little wrapping into the little golden ratio we've been tracking. And then today or tomorrow, the 9/16/25 is also 8/16/77, which is when the King Spirit died on the toilet reading the scientific search for the face of Jesus or whatever we're told about. But anyways, tomorrow and the next day are 9/6/9 combo days, but it also lines up for your 8/16 combination day, and we're also in Elvis died at age 42, and we're in the 24 marker of the 9/11. So also 16 and 17 is part of tied to that 24/7 open and close that I've talked about in the past. So this 24/7, 7 days including or not including the Kirk turning to blood and such, that circumcision on the neck, that would be tying in that 24/7 clock on there, and then the 7/20/24 market crash day and false prophet day and all those kinds of things all would be kind of wrapping up into these little number segments that we got showing. All right, but just to help y'all understand that little lunatic going on the dark side of the moon, and that Black Widow event, as we're shown Erica Trump draping herself over the coffin, and the coffin is the hack and those types of things. But that Coliseum, that Roman Coliseum, that big blast out of the stadium, baseball pastime, Batman, all those kinds of things to be kind of checking in our reality as we go into the SS, the merge of mythos, the myth, the operating system, the politics, the rituals, all these things combining into one little point in time. And that Silver Surfer, the heralds the beginning and heralds the end. So all that Silver Surfer is upon us now as the dark side of the moon and the moon, all these things are starting to reflect the sun, Charlie Kirk, and that woman, the moon god, Erica Kirk, she'd be tying into some of these things. So either way, folks,